A very good morning to all. Welcome to the DBT-STAR funded international webinar on Future Launcher, organized by Department of Zoology, St. Teresa's College, Ernakulam. I welcome all the teachers and participants of this webinar. Now, I would like to introduce the resource person, respected Amal T. Anup, Human Resource Assistant, Capilano University. He completed his postgraduate diploma in Human Resources from Capilano University. He also won the Dr. V.K. Alexander Memorial Award for the Best Outstanding Student in Curricular and Extracurricular Activities and Community Services at both graduate and postgraduate levels. He won the third rank in the university for Masters in Psychology and fifth rank in the university for Bachelors in Psychology. He also started the initiative of providing audiobooks for blind students. He also gives various training sessions and motivational speaks to the school and college students. With immense pleasure, on behalf of St. Teresa's College, I welcome you, sir, to this session. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Amal here. So we're just about to start the main event right now, but I'm just waiting for other participants, which I'm expecting them to be here in probably about 2 minutes. So, courtesy's sake, we will give them 2 minutes, 2 more minutes before we actually start this webinar. Okay, so let me just give you a few housekeeping, instructions before I even start the main event or the webinar. I hope you are all awake and not feeling hungry, and I hope you're all full at this point of time, because that is something that we have no control over, and I cannot be that person who kind of wants to hold you back to your seats if you're really hungry and sleepy. So probably if you want to grab something a chips or something, probably just grab it, because this is not going to be something which requires your textbook or notebook or writing notes or stuff like that. I can assure you that this will be an interactive session where it's more kind of sharing of ideas and experience and things like that. So I can assure you that you won't be sleeping. And so you have quick 1 minute to grab a glass of water or things like that, and just be ready for the presentation. Perfect. So I'm seeing a few, live chat. So the live chat is active, and as any of the platforms, if you have any questions or any queries, so I'll be giving you at least 15 to 20 minutes for interactive sessions. So you can just hold back on your questions, and then feel free to ask any questions or suggestions or criticisms or anything at the end of my presentation. So, all right. Perfect. So, yeah, we'll be starting in a couple of seconds. Cool. Sure. Okay. So I can actually see a comment here. So sure, I will be sharing my email. Definitely, I will. Thank you so much for reminding, Rashida. All right. So I guess we are ready to go, and we're going to start the official webinar right now. Okay, so before I start this whole presentation, I need to acknowledge a few people who made this wonderful webinar possible. So I would like to thank Dr. Sister Vinita C. SST, the director, and Dr. Lizzie Matthew, the principal, and Dr. Mira Jan Abraham, the head of the Department of Zoology of St. Teresa's College, Dr. Rima Kriakos, Dr. Soja, Dr. Helvin, and the entire team in the Department of Zoology for giving me such an amazing opportunity to be with you and kind of interact with you. And it gives me immense pleasure to give back something to an institution like St. Teresa's. It's a prestigious institution, and I'm always happy to associate with St. Teresa's. And thank you so much for this opportunity today. And all right, guys, let's start. So I can assure you this is not a traditional kind of a webinar. So I would like to mention a few things before I go on to the actual presentation. Now, what am I doing right now here in Vancouver? So after I did my postgraduate diploma in human resources, I'm currently working as a human resource assistant and mainly in the recruiting section. So mostly, most part of my job is like, kind of going through resumes, arranging interviews, doing reference checks. So within this short period of time, I was lucky enough to get exposure to that wide area of recruiting, and I've actually gone through hundreds of resumes and cover letters, and so I really feel that is really important to share that information with my young brothers and sisters sitting right in front of me, so that I can relate completely with you. I am a fresh graduate. Our age difference is not too big. The gap is not too big. So this is going to be more of an interactive session where a senior is kind of explaining things to you and giving you a guidance for a lot of things. I hope that's pretty much clear to you. And the whole, the core of this webinar is how to prepare for your future. It could be a higher education for people who have completed their degree or are in their second year or who have just started their degree programs. And for people who have actually completed postgraduates or, even after degree who are looking for a job, this seminar will also help them, give a few tips regarding that as well. All right, so without further delay, let me start. All right. Now, what is the whole purpose of a webinar like this, where you have a lot of kind of career guidance and things like that? So why should I even talk about things? Oh, there he is. He's my, a duo. I don't know, he's quite stressed in the past couple of days. I don't know what is wrong with him. He seems to be really, really stressed. Oh, I gotta come on. You don't actually have to throw away a $1,000 laptop if you're really stressed. Career guidance, career can actually be a really stressful thing. Thinking about future, applying for jobs, applying for courses, preparing, statement of purpose, resumes and cover letter. It can be definitely a stressful experience. I totally understand that. But I assure you, if you're sitting throughout this webinar, definitely there will be some takebacks, and I hope that you stay till the entire seminar, and I'll be giving you a lot more information regarding the same. I hope this will be really useful to you. So as I've just mentioned, any career decision in the future that might be a higher education, that might be related to finding jobs, it is a stressful process, even with the increased need for, demand for international courses. We are in a world where we need to take a lot of proactive steps to be successful in one's future and career. So that is exactly the core of what I'll be talking to you today. So a few more housekeeping rules for the people who were not with us at the time when we started. It's definitely some interesting stuff. Now, this might be a question. Can I just put the camera off and microphone muted and go to sleep? Well, this is not a platform like that where, it's not like Zoom, it's not like Google Meet where you can actually turn on the camera or turn off your microphone, things like that. Well, what I can assure you is that if my class or my session or interactive session seems to be not interesting to you, I will not penalize you for that. If I'm not making things interesting for you, you have all the right to just quit this thing because this is YouTube, right? So the thing with YouTube Live is that there's no track that you're sitting in right in front of me or you are awake or things like that. So that totally depends on my presentation. So don't worry about it. Like feeling lazy, feeling sick or things like that. It's a basic human tendency and no one to hold you back from sleeping if I'm not making it interesting enough. All right. Now, what are we lacking in today's scenario? So this actually comes out of a survey or like, a few studies that are conducted by different organizations. So I have just taken a few key and core points that, students today are lacking in India, students as well as professionals. The first thing is definitely communication skills. The next is problem solving and creativity. The third thing seems to be interesting, but it's kind of weird, right? We do not ask questions. That's kind of it might seem to be a negative or like it's puzzling, but the thing is, people fail to ask questions. So this is one of the biggest drawbacks that we can see today. Another thing is lack of integration of technology. It's not that we are saying that we are using Instagram, we are using Facebook and a lot of other media, but at the same time, we fail to integrate this with your work. The last thing is multitasking. Multitasking in today's scenario, even if you're studying, even if you're going for your higher courses or like international education or looking for a job, it's a really, really, really important skill. Because it's not like the earlier days where you only had to focus on one single thing at a time. You have reached a digital era where you are exposed to a lot of media at the same time. So you need to devote and dedicate yourself to, divide your attention among different sources and different media. So I hope that is clear for you. So I'll be explaining a lot of these things in detail. And these are the essential things for a better future. Because if you ask me, I would say that skills, creativity, networking, technology, and a learning mindset are the most essential things for a bright future. Now, let me just take you through all these in quite a bit. Don't think that this is going to be a theoretical session. I'll be actually telling you a few stories and things like that, but these things are fundamental for, for any further things that we discuss in this webinar from now on, right? Okay, so the skills, what it technically means is your hard skills. Like say if you've taken a subject like zoology or like, microbiology or like physics or chemistry, your core knowledge in that very subject is your skills. So if you do not have the hard skills, then definitely even if you have your soft skills, it might not be really useful when it comes to your higher education or a job. Like say if you nail the interview, you give an amazing interview, but once you start working, if you do not have the necessary hard skills, then all the effort that you take from then on would be in vain. So that is fundamental. Even though I will not be covering the hard skills aspect because that has got nothing to do with the topic that I'm mentioning right now, right here. So it doesn't mean that it is not important. It is very important, but just keep that in your mind. The next thing is creativity. I'll talk about that later. So let's just leave that for now. And networking. It is fundamental. It is very, very, very essential. Like, let me just take a few examples. Now, I am a part of like a few groups on Facebook. Like that when I started here as a student, when I came to Canada in 2018, I was a member of a group which is like it's technically restricted to students from Kerala, actually for Malayalis. So മലയാളികൾക്ക് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഫേസ്ബുക്ക് കൂട്ടായ്മ അങ്ങനെ വേണമെങ്കിലും പറയാം. So technically it's just that. So networking need not just happen within a formal environment. It can even happen within an informal environment like Facebook. Like for example, if you've chosen a specific course or if you won't want to go to a certain university or a college, all you can do is just search for a specific person who has taken so-and-so course in so-and-so university and you can send messages. All right, things like that. So networking need not be confined to LinkedIn, or networking need not just be confined to like meeting people in a seminar or like an education expo or things like that. So it can be anywhere, anytime, maybe formal or informal. So things like that. But I've got a funny story to share. So always make sure that when you do networking, make sure that you are always courteous and you always show some respect to the person whom you're asking the help. I've really had good experience with a lot of students who reached out to me like, do you have a moment, or do you have like 5 minutes to share with me, or like, do you have like 5 or 10 minutes? Can I just give you a call, or like, can I ask you the specific question? And in that case, like, you should think about the people on the other side as well. Like, we might be, kind of just free after a long shift of work. So when I was a student, I was doing part-time jobs. I was doing part-time jobs as well as I was taking 5 courses at the same time. So I was really tired. And at the end of the day, you receive all these messages from a lot of students online, and you're really tired, right? So when you hear a message in which people say like, can you please spare 5 minutes? Then you feel really motivated to answer. But at the same time, I've had people who just ask, send SOP. That's the first message. Can you just, SOP for people who don't know, it's statement of purpose. It's basically used for, kind of higher education. Like say if you need to go for your master's or go abroad for study visa, things like that. The institution or the immigration authorities need to know your purpose of studying abroad or like, taking the specific course. So that is called as SOP. So there are people who ask, could you please share your an SOP template? Then I'd be more than happy to do that. But there are people who just start by saying, send SOP. When I was thinking, we haven't met before, right? And how dare you ask for my SOP like, right away? So networking always comes with etiquette. So always be respectful, always be, kind of kind enough to respect the person on the other side. And that makes that much more easier. The next thing is technology, which I'll be covering later. And the last point is learning mindset. No matter how old you are, no matter what level of education that you've acquired, like maybe it's like, degree or postgrads or postdoctoral, always have the learning mindset, because that keeps you young and that helps you learn a lot of things even in the future. So always keep on learning. Perfect. The next thing is the first step towards your future is introspection. We know that we are living in a society where a lot of these things are, judged by the society, like, the pressure from parents, like, cousins, so and so and so on, right? So even the parents will have a lot of pressure as their, kind of children are growing up, right? So when they reach 10, the first question that they ask, like, how much is the mark? What is his future goals? The next thing is when 12th. So that's another checkpoint. And after 12th, it's degree. And after degree, it's like, PG. And after PG, it's like, whatever. And some people go to marriage and things like that. So there's a lot of pressure from around for us that affects our decision making. But the first and fundamental thing that you need to have within yourself is to introspect who you are, what are your skills, and what are your capabilities. Because I have found that a lot of people who actually talk to me about their career and a lot of things, they actually do not have an idea or clear concept about what their future have to be. Let me make this point very clear. They have no idea about their future. And at the same time, they blame the society for the pressure that they are getting from all the sides. But I'm pretty sure that I'm not saying that the pressure does not exist. I really know people who did not like a specific course, but were forced to take that course just because of their pressures. I totally understand that. I totally respect it. But at the same time, it's very, very necessary that you have an idea about yourself, your strengths, what your weaknesses are, what your interests are. So before choosing a course like, a higher education course or like, studying abroad, it should not be because so-and-so person did that and became successful. So-and-so person, I heard that so-and-so person is making a six-figure, salary, like he's getting a six-figure salary per month. That should not be the reason why you're taking a specific course. Rather, it should be out of your genuine interest. All right? So that is the first step towards any of these decisions that you might take in your life. Just mark my words. The next thing is in the search process. So this is common across choosing for higher education and a job as well. Always do not get fooled by the title. There might be certain courses or like, kind of institutions that offer integrated programs in that and that and that. might be mostly like, private institutions that might offer some courses that you might seem attractive. Like, oh, within 4 years, I'm going to get that qualification. I'm going to get placed in that institution. That is exactly what they show in brochure. If you note that we've got an education system which is completely judged by the marketing and things like that, if you're aware, there might be some institutions that shows the advertisements like, kind of thick brochures, like, kind of huge web advertisements, and, they'll be present in all those global education expos and things like that. And so when you see the title, when you see the institution from outside, you might be thinking that this is an amazing institution. This can change my future forever. And you might even forget about going to all the really good institutions which requires a high cutoff marks and which might not seem as fancy as it sees from outside, as you see it from outside. And so what I'm intending to say here, or what I want to convey, is that don't get fooled by the title of it. The same applies to job. So if you are looking for a job, don't get fooled by the mere title of a job. It might be a job that promises you a position of a supervisor or a manager, but the firm might not be a well-known firm or a company which might be about to close down. So don't get fooled by the title. Always do a thorough search and do your part of research before you even choose a course, an institution, or a country. The next thing is the industry. So be it anything, you might be passionate about doing a certain thing. You might be really, really, looking forward on, taking a specific course or things like that. But always make sure that is this industry, what might be it? Is the industry relevant today? What might be the condition of this industry 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 10 years from now? Beyond that, I would say no, don't look at it, because we are living in an era where there are a lot of uncertainties, right? We never thought about COVID. Who even imagined that we would be sitting right in front of your computers when you are attending your college classrooms, right? Instead of going to your college classrooms. So that is the kind of change that we are going through. So always make sure that you do your research regarding the industry which you want to be. Perhaps you might be really interested in doing or going to a certain industry, but that might not be surviving in the future. So always make sure that you do your research first, because it might be too late once you've taken the course or started the program, and then to reverse, it's very, very hard. I've seen thousands of people do that. Never, ever do that. The next thing is learn more about the company or the institution. Company in terms of the job search, institution in terms of it. So there are a few institutions, as I know, they give bogus information like, they're deemed, they're to be deemed, things like that. So always make sure that you follow the exact, government policies. And there are websites by the government of India which shows which institutions are fake and which are not. So it is really important that you keep yourself updated with the credibility of the institution that you are going to join. So there are some institutions which do have this bogus accreditation stuff. Always make sure that they're legit and genuine. Don't fall for their promises and the thick brochures and all the publicity stunts that they might perform. So it really confuses you to take a specific set path, but don't get fooled by it. I'm not saying that all private institutions are bad or all institutions that do extensive marketing are bad. No, do your research, but don't just get fooled by its cover. Don't judge the book by its cover. The same thing. All right, makes sense. Cool. The next thing is, I hope, the majority of the people, I understand that they speak Malayalam. മൂപ്പൻ അറിയാലോ, അറിയാത്തവരായിട്ട് ആരും ഉണ്ടാവില്ല. So the intention of resume or the statement of purpose is that be genuine. Don't be like him. വല്ലാതെ കണ്ട് നമ്മൾ ഒരു കാര്യത്തിലും തള്ളാൻ നിൽക്കരുത്. So just be yourself and just be genuine to all the things that you mentioned there. So even in resume or like cover letter or the statement of purpose, do not write an idealistic thing that you may want to achieve or things like that. Just be yourself. People who are evaluating your resume or cover letter, from my personal experience, we might be able to judge like within just the first 5 to 6 seconds that you spend on a resume, you will be able to know whether that is genuine or that is slightly out of line. Because most people, you don't have to worry about the fact that a lot of people would ask for like, experience in doing this, doing that, and things like that. So when you see that, you have a tendency to write things which you have not done, or write things in a more amplified manner, which I think it's not a good thing to do. So always make sure that it is genuine and do a self-evaluation before you even submit it. Because it's not about how it looks, but rather it's more about how much you are genuine, how well you communicate that to your employer or the selection committee, or whomever is in the student recruiting. Student recruiting in terms of if you're going for higher education, there would be a panel who assesses your credentials and your resume and things like that. So only mention the things that are relevant in it. Okay, so let me just take you to the preparation of resume and SOP in detail. What are the things that you need to make sure when you write your SOP or resume? The first and foremost thing is understand the intention. Why do we need to have a statement of purpose or resume? What is the whole purpose of it? I mean, don't think that resume and SOP are the same. No, I do not mean to say that. Resume is totally a different thing, and SOP is different. But I mean, I just included that in the same title so that I can cover both the topics again. Resume is just kind of objectively defining your experience, your personal information, your experience, your volunteer work, all those things. But SOP is describing what you've done, like what qualifies you as a student or as a candidate for the specific course, things like that. Okay, so the first thing that you need to know is what is the expectation from the institution? What does this specific course intend to do? Or what does the specific institution want you to do? So there would be a checklist. So always make sure that it is in line with the requirements of them. You might have done thousands of things in your life. You might have become the class leader. You might have become the secretary of a local, say, some children's association, things like that. But if that's not relevant to the specific job that you're applying to or the specific course that you're applying to, better not include that. So, make it concise, make it relatable to whatever you're doing. And people do have a tendency to avoid certain aspects that they've actually gone through in their life. Let me just give you one example. Like, say if you were really, really happy about, like, say for example, like human resources. So when I took this course in human resources, I was genuinely interested in people. Like, I liked interacting with people. I liked resolving the problems and things like that. So a genuine and convincing statement of purpose should always convey that in a genuine and legitimate manner. So for example, like say if I was able to relate that to something that I did in my childhood, because I was like really interested in talking to people, listening to their problems, and I loved being the class leader, things like that. So any of your life experience that is in line with the course that you're taking, feel free to write it. Any of the, the movies that influenced you greatly, you can include that. All those things that you might think might be irrelevant, but always make sure that if that has got something to do with the course that you're taking, in statement of purpose, make sure that you write that. So let me just repeat that again. Things like even a movie, a person who has influenced you, maybe your parents, maybe it's something that you did help your parents or things like that, or help a teacher, and then you gained a certain knowledge from a specific class, you can feel free to write that in the statement of purpose. It is not just about the project that you did, the assignment that you did, or maybe a scientific thing that you did on an exhibition. No. Just forget about it. If you've done something that can be related to that specific course, write it. And about the resume, as I've mentioned before, all the things that are relevant should be included, and all the things that are not relevant, please do not include it, because it's just making the recruiter's job tougher. And the more you write things that are not relevant, the higher the chances that it might get rejected. But at the same time, because they know your age, like say, if you're submitting a resume and you're just 19 years old and 20 years old, people have the basic logic to understand that your experience is not that great. I mean, it's not that great in the sense it doesn't mean that all the experience that you've gained is not good or bad. No. Because what can you expect from a person who is just 19 years old? They won't be expecting more. So be genuine, be authentic. Only include the stuff that is relatable, and only include the things that are relevant to the specific course or the specific job. I hope I'm clear to you. All right, moving on. The next thing is interview. What are the things to be done on an interview, and what are the things that you should not be doing in an interview? All right, interviews can be stressful, at least for a few people. Like, I was really lucky to be a part of a few of the interview panels, and I've actually talked with a lot of the hiring managers and directors and people like that. And it's been a great privilege for me working in a huge institution where we employ our institution actually employs about 1,003, close to 1,000 faculty and about like 400 staff members. So it's not a huge university, but in terms of like the job that you do, there's always recruiting happening. So I always had this privilege of talking to the higher officials like managers or directors. And it is always my privilege to work in the institution where I studied. So it was a whole different story. So when I was graduating, it was a happiest moment for me, because I was seeing my teachers and my kind of people who've worked, people who were sending me the recruiting letters, accepting me as a student. I was seeing them in person as staff members, as an HR assistant, which was really, really happy for me to do. So let's do an interview. What are the common questions? I'm not saying that these are the only questions that they ask. No. But if you can answer these questions, if you can answer these questions really well and keep your answers prepared, then definitely you can nail an interview very, very well. As I mentioned before, hard skills is another thing that I will not be going through any of the points, which I'll be adding right now. Hard skills are really important. So if they ask any subject related questions, don't tell me that I didn't mention that any subject related questions will be asked. No, subject related questions will always be asked, and you need to do the preparation that is in line with the course and its requirements. Always make sure that you do your preparation. Now, coming to the general questions, the first thing is a self-introduction. Always make sure that you have a convincing and appealing self-introduction ready. So it should include all the relevant things, and it should have a brief introduction about yourself, your family, what your interests are, what your ambitions are, about a few interesting things that you've read, or what influenced you in taking a specific course or a job, things like that. So all those things that defines you. Make sure that you keep it short. They're not here to listen to a whole, a long, speech of yours. Rather, it should be confined or, restricted to a minute or 2 minutes to the max. I would highly recommend that you keep it limited to a minute. All right. The next thing is, do you know the requirements of what is expected of this specific position or the specific course? For that, all you need to do, if you're looking for a job, always read through the job description. Don't stick onto the title, rather go in deep into the courses. Like, for example, say you're taking a specific course. You need to go through the specific program, which all are the courses that I'll be taking in each semester, and read through it really, really well. And always make sure that there is always a scope for these people, like the interview panel or the recruiting team members, to ask any questions that are related to any of the subjects that might be of interest to you. So always make sure that you read what are the expectations, what are the requirements of each course, and things like that. And same with the job. Like for the job, always make sure the job description will have what is expected of you, like say performing so and so things and scheduling so and so meetings, things like that. So always familiarize with all those things and be prepared. The next thing, why do you think you are the right candidate or a right student for the specific course? You should have a genuine answer for this. Don't say questions, don't go with the, cliche responses that you usually see in shows like, Miss India or Miss Kerala. I'm not saying that all their responses are bogus. No, I don't mean to say that. But don't say that, I wish to change the world. I wish to influence so people. I wish to, kind of wipe away the poverty from India. No. Don't go with it. So my intention is that, so why do you think you are a right candidate for the specific position or candidate for the specific course would be something that is personal, something that is relatable, and something that clearly aligns with us. Like, say, for example, I've always had this, I always felt happy when I was interacting with people, when I was advising people. And right from my childhood, like teachers used to make me a class leader, assign me things like that. So just because of my people skills. So that is how you convince them. I hope that is clear to you. And give us a few examples. Now, this is really important. By just saying that I have skills in office, I have skills in that, I have skills in this, I have skills in that, you can mention that in the resume. But at the same time, when they ask you real life examples, you should be able to give at least one or two. Let me make this very clear. For any of the things that you mention in the resume, you should be able to give some solid responses or solid answers to substantiate any of the claims that you make in the resume. Otherwise, what happens is that they will understand that all the things that you've mentioned is just some words and has got to do nothing with your actual skills. So show some passion. Take this as an opportunity, as a window to your work, as a window to achieve all the things that you want to achieve in your future, and love it, and put all your effort in it, and definitely you will enjoy it. Don't take that as a stressful thing. And the next thing is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? This is a cliche question. The expected answer is that never say that I will become the CEO of this company. No, don't do that. The next 5 years, always understand all the positions that are there in the organizations. Or, like, say, if you are about to do a higher education, then in the next 5 years, where would you realistically be? Probably in a beginning or an intermediate job, right? Say, for example, if you've started, if you've completed the course, and if you're doing your research, then that should be your, goal. And you should not be seeing yourself as in an unrealistic position. Always make sure that it is realistic and it aligns with whatever you are. Great. The next thing is communication skills, which is really important. Communication skills does not just mean like talking like this or doing a presentation, anything. Communication skills also include texting, because in today's scenario, earlier, would you ever imagine teachers endorsing WhatsApp? Because before, you couldn't even imagine that your portions or even exams or online exams would be delivered through WhatsApp. Just think about this an year ago. Would teachers ever do that? Like do an exam or put the link of the exam there or materials in the WhatsApp or things like that. So that's how things have changed. So communication skills are really, really important, not in like formal communication, but also through means like your phone or like your mail or even a message that you send through WhatsApp or Facebook or Messenger, things like that. So always make sure that you use the right words and make sure that the message is conveyed with care. Okay, now the first thing is understand the purpose. So what is the purpose of the communication? Whether that is informal, that is formal, that is very important. Say if you are talking to your co-worker, you shouldn't not be too formal, but at the same time, if you're talking to the vice president or director, make sure that you reread the whole thing. Read it again, read it again, read it again. Things like, softwares like Grammarly or softwares like, the autocorrect in Word can really help you do that. But make sure that you do not copy paste things from Google. There is no problem in you referring to it, but the problem is when you use these, kind of technologies extensively, the Grammarly and all these artificial intelligence oriented things, it makes your work ingenuine. The thing is, it can only be used as a means to correct your work, rather not suggest something which is not your work. I hope that is clear, because don't depend completely on the online resources to prepare a work of yours, because that is no longer a work of yours. Rather, it is a creation that you've taken someone else from someone else. So always make sure that you reread, you proofread it before you send it, and make sure that it is your original creation. The next thing is understand the medium. As I've mentioned, if it's mail, you should follow the mail etiquette. If it's a WhatsApp, follow that, things like that. So according to every medium, it needs to be adapted and changed. The next thing is understand the receiver. As I've mentioned before, if it's the CEO of the firm, definitely it should be really, really formal. If it's your friend, probably not. You don't have to be really formal. Would you expect your, talking to your friend like, respected so and so person, may I borrow your textbook for tomorrow? It will be a great thing. Thanking you, you're sincerely. No, you're not expecting that. So always understand the receiver and do your, communication in that way. Okay. And the last thing is practice, practice, and practice. There are a lot of people who ask me, how do I communicate effectively, like talk effectively? The only thing is that you can do is practice. So like say if you're about to go for an interview or about to do an IELTS, like, listening test, or like, speaking skills or whatever it is. So practice is the key. Always make sure that you listen to English films or English music or things like that, and try to practice that by yourself. It is the only way in which you can improve your skills. If you're not using it, definitely you're not gonna, do anything with the skills. So always do a bit of practice, not just before something, just do it a bit, beforehand. It's not about learning for an exam. Rather, these skills need to be learned over a period of time. So this is not something that you can do in the last minute. To be honest, I'm a last minute learner. Except for anything that I've mentioned in this, all the other stuff that I do, maybe for my psychology exams or like HR exams, I was a last minute learner. So that works in terms of hard skills to an extent, but never ever with soft skills. And another problem that I've noted in these days is that education has itself become a huge business. So there are people who, kind of makes you think that entrance examinations are hard, interview skills are hard to do, like spoken English is a really hard thing to attain, IELTS is kind of a really hard thing to do. Yeah, I totally respect those things, but do not fall for it completely. Because the only way that all these people can survive is only by, kind of creating that sort of a fear in people and understanding that it's a huge deal. Like, I would totally respect the fact that, coaching and, kind of guidance are really useful for people. But at the same time, always understand what your skills are. There are a lot of free lectures on YouTube. There are a lot of resources for free. There are a lot of books that you can refer to. So first, you try to improve it by yourself and then do it. And if you still fail to do, you can definitely go for, courses like that, online, paid, or like, go for a coaching center, things like that. But always make sure that people who are sitting in the recruiting are not there to like, eat you, or they're not here to kill you if you're making some mistakes. So the only intention is to understand who you are. So if you're able to communicate that really well, then you're good to go. Don't fall for the fact that, oh, this is going to destroy your future. No, not at all. Stay relaxed, understand your skills, do your self-preparation, and then you're good to go. The next thing is technology. Now, talking about technology, how much have things changed? As I've discussed before, earlier, being a huge technology geek was helping your mom, resolve some things. Control, Alt, Delete used to be the definition of a techie way before. But today, can you consider that as a huge technological thing? No, not at all. Because today, you need to be aware of the technology that you have. Like, you need to know how to join the classrooms, like, kind of Zoom or like Google Meet. You should know the platforms like Teams, things like that. So it is really necessary that you keep yourself up to date with the technology. Like, another important tip to you is that make sure that you learn Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft Outlook well. You have thousands of free classes online on YouTube. If you search for them, just mark my words, Excel, Word, and Outlook. Life changer. Even for your higher studies or job, if you have really good skills over these, you can definitely get good jobs. It's because technology is inseparable from today's work environment. Without technology, you cannot survive. I can be very sure about this. Without technology, you cannot survive in today's world. We are living in so much of, between that kind of an integration in today's world. So totally respect it and keep yourself up to date. The funny part is, like, when there's a new app in the store that helps you download a new Netflix series for free, a series online for free, like, kind of apps like Telegram, it spread like in seconds. Like, apps like TikTok. Earlier, we used to have, like, I don't know whether people still remember, we have Smule, right? We had an application like Smule. And only then did, like, TikTok came. Even before that, we had something else, which Star Maker or things like that. So we had apps like that. So within months, we kind of adapt to the latest technology for entertainment. But how many of you really have LinkedIn installed in your phone? How many of you really have, courses for or TED lectures or things like that installed in your phone? So that's a different story. So it's very, very, very important that you keep yourself up to date with the technology that helps you achieve, things in your work, and also keep yourself up to date with the latest technology that helps in your higher education. Especially if you're looking for higher education in countries like Canada or any countries abroad, technology is an important factor, especially with plagiarism. Because let me give you one more example. So when we do the projects here, usually teachers, especially when we were doing our masters, teachers used to say, do not plagiarize. Do not plagiarize. And that's it. That's it. And the thing is, teachers may go through it and they have the skills to refer, and then they have to do it manually, read through, and then they would recommend, they would say that, oh, I guess you've written too much from the specific original content. You need to change this. But if you're going abroad, or even if you're submitting your work in a university, like say MG University, they'll be using directly to the university, they'll be using an automatic plagiarism checking software. So the same thing is used in any of the countries abroad, like Canada, for even a basic assignment. Let me make this clear. Even for a 3-page assignment, they'll be doing a plagiarism check. So if you're not aware about it, and if your plagiarism level is more than 20% or 25%, it's an automatic fail. It's an automatic fail. It's not even 0, it's a 0. So make sure that you keep yourself updated with the technology, and make sure that you are really knowledgeable about these resources that you use. That's a huge tip that I can give to all my brothers and sisters out there. Now, how to be creative. Yes, definitely, you can be creative in your work. How to be creativity is always, when we think creativity, what is the first image of being creative comes to you? Say, I would say the image of being creative is not like, Dulquer Salmaan on Charlie, or or Tovino in Luca. It's not that kind of a creativity that I'm talking about, but it's more about the creativity, how much you can put that into work. How can I become creative in my day-to-day affairs of work? I would say definitely you can. Because in a simple task, for example, there are people, what I've seen is that when there is a hindrance, or when there is an, kind of a block, or an issue in a work, people tend to just leave it. Oh, that is none of our business. Let's not do it, or let's just forget about it. That's the common response to a problem usually in a workplace. But what you can do is you can be really creative and come out with solutions. When I was studying in my college, I had just taken informatics in my 12th. So my stream was commerce informatics, and then so I was really interested in developing softwares and things like that. Amateur softwares, to be very specific and very clear, amateur softwares, they were not the best. But it really, really helped me do some stuff that really helped other people as well. So we had this issue, our college library, not the college library, our department library had hundreds of books. So there was a problem, we had to write it manually, right? But our college library did have a good software, which was totally fine. But our department library, we were still writing it in the book. So there was instances when people returned the book, students used to return the book, and that was not marked. Another student would take the book and would not return. So the problem being, at the end of the year, when they do the auditing, the person who last took the book would be penalized for not returning the book. So that was a big issue. And there were people who did not return the books for months. So there was no way that we could keep track of that. So I developed a software, which was actually crazy. Which was a very limited, which is a simple little software. But that really helped initially. And so that's how you be creative. I could have just left the problem that's none of my business. But at the same time, there are little things that you can do that never competes with the top softwares that is available in the market, but still it resolved the issue. So that is how you be creative in the work. So definitely try that out. And if there's a problem, if you really, really, really want to excel in your job, come out with solutions. Do a little bit of problem solving. Even if it fails, no worries at all. Just be creative, come out with solutions. That should really help you in your career and your future. All right, so I've actually come to the end of the formal presentation. Now, as I've promised to you before, we had enough time to interact. So now it's open for discussion. Feel free to write your questions down there, and I'll try my best to answer all those questions. And yep, and always make sure you can ask any question for that matter. I'll try my best to answer, but you can ask any question for that matter. Okay? So yeah, it's open. I'll try my best to answer. Okay. While I receive any of the questions, so one of the things that I've mentioned earlier in the initial the starting of my presentation was our, tendency of not asking questions, right? So that has got to do with one of the biggest reasons why we fail to do is that we don't think much beyond. This has got to do with our education system to a large extent, right? I mean, a lot of times, like when you are suppressed, like, when you're not able to express yourself or things like that, or when you used to say alternative answers, you might be suppressed by teachers by saying, oh, that's a wrong answer, sit down. So it is somewhere there in our schema that we fail to ask questions. We refuse to ask questions. But this is, kind of a free stage or a free venue where you can ask any questions related to any of the things that I've mentioned or any of the tips that I could give to people, like, in terms of like job search or like, higher education things. I could share that from the perspective of a senior telling that to juniors, or like, any person who requires guidance in that. It doesn't even need to be on the same age, or all these things are general stuff. So you don't have to actually have that fear of asking questions. Questions are never wrong. How can a question be wrong? So, and I'm that kind of a person who never believes that there's no fundamental right or wrong in any of those, questions or responses. It's just an alternate form of answers. So feel free to ask questions. It's open. You can use the chat box, and I hope you know where it is located. Like, so on the chat, if you can see the video on the right side, you can, say something. You can type your questions and ask any of the questions. Interesting. Just feel free to ask any questions, because I guess that's the biggest courage that you can like even have. Or was I like, so clear with the points that I mentioned that you don't have any more questions to ask? But yeah, feel free, because I really want to make this an interactive session rather than a seminar, which you write down the points, note it down, and get a certificate at the end of it. But I guess it's more important if we can share things, right? If I am able to know what are your requirements, if what are your expectations of a job, or things like that, it'll be really helpful for me to deliver content in that manner. So all these things are general, like the stuff that I've learned, that I've understood. But if you are asking questions, that will be really helpful, like for you and other people who are watching this at the same time. So yeah, definitely feel free to ask any questions, or if you need any clarifications regarding any of the things that I mentioned before, feel free to ask that as well. Any of the questions, yeah. Okay. Perfect. So the first question that I got is like, Dominic. So the first question is, what were the part-time jobs that you did? Perfect. Okay. So this is interesting. So I just did one part-time job at that point of time, and I was working for a food service outlet that was just like McDonald's. It was just the most basic job that you can find there. It was a minimum paid, a basic job. I was technically dealing with people. I was interacting with people, taking orders, cleaning the store, making food, throwing garbage, doing all the kind of random stuff. But that's the most interesting thing of it. I could assure you that those were the things that really helped me get to this job right now, because customer service experience and kind of the language is a lot of things that you're catering, that you learn while you're catering your customers. So the communication skills is something that I completely learned from my job there. And once you do even the basic jobs, like washing, even the washrooms and cleaning all those stuff, throwing the waste, you really become competent of your skills, and that is the hardest job that you would ever do. And I deeply acknowledge those people who taught me the job and taught me my basic jobs, like kind of to do all those stuff. And I'm really grateful. I'm really glad that you asked that question, and that is something that really helped me achieve all those things. And I still remember that job. I did that for like 1 year. Yeah. Okay, the next thing is, could you elaborate on Microsoft Outlook? So the question is, could you elaborate on Microsoft Outlook? All right, so Microsoft Outlook is a part of the Microsoft Office suite, which consists of applications like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and things like that. So Outlook is basically an organizer and an email client. So basic purposes are sending mails, or kind of maybe arranging a meeting, scheduling things, and a lot of things. It can also be your personal calendar. It can help you send you reminders. It helps you schedule meetings and know your calendar. Like every day when you turn on your computer, Outlook gives you a reminder, okay, you need to do this, this, and this, things like that. So a Microsoft Outlook is essential for any job for that matter. It helps you to do a lot of things. Fundamentally, you would be using that for sending mails. But beyond that, it is more kind of an organizer for your whole professional life and even personal life, if I ask you. So I hope that is clear. And if you have any more questions, feel free to write. Any of those questions that I've just answered, if you have follow-up questions, feel free to ask that as well. Perfect. Okay, the next is by Pooja. So, so what is the importance of having a LinkedIn account? Perfect. That's a very interesting, very relevant question. So LinkedIn is a professional networking software or an app, just like Facebook or Orkut or whatever, social networking site. So the intention of LinkedIn is to connect with professionals in India or abroad. So say if you need to interact with someone in Canada or an organization here in Canada, and you want to know what are the job opportunities that you have. What is the easiest way to do it? It's just by logging on to LinkedIn. By LinkedIn, if you're sending a personal message to that manager or even the director, and if you're asking, so I am really passionate about doing a job there for your company, LinkedIn is the only resource that you can rely on for communicating with people. So it's actually a professional networking software. You don't actually have to go in person and meet people, but you can do all the networking, find all the jobs, and do stuff like that. Another importance of LinkedIn account is that it is right now used as an applicant tracking system. So by applicant tracking system, what it means is that if you send your resume or cover letter in LinkedIn, not the current letter, but resume, it automatically extracts the things like your skills, what your knowledge areas are, and then saves it in your account. So the next time when a similar job opportunity appears in an industry that you like, then you automatically get a mail response by saying that there is a job that is available for you. There is an internship available to you. So a LinkedIn account really helps you in your professional career. I hope that was clear to you. Let me just go on to the next question. If you have any more questions, definitely ask. So I would highly recommend that you install LinkedIn on your phone, fundamentally. Perfect. Okay, and the next question is by Anna Susan Roy. Hello, sir. Would you please tell the prerequisites of getting into university? So, and again, this totally depends upon the university, the country, and the specific course that you're taking. Like say for masters, it's kind of an extensive process. It's not just about your resume. There's a huge application fee, and there you need to do interviews. So maybe first you submit the statement of purpose and your resume. They might then call you for an interview, and then there might be few interviews. Like say for example, for research programs, I guess there's a few interviews. There might even be elaboration of the project that you have done. So this is for masters programs abroad. Like say for diploma programs, you might just need to submit your credentials, whatever you've done, courses that you've done before, your statement of purpose, your resume, and that's it. You might not even be interviewed for diploma courses like what I did here. So it totally depends upon the university and totally depends upon the course that you're doing. And you should actually look for the requirements and the course requirements and admission criteria for each and every course that corresponds to different institutions. And Another thing is the immigration requirements. So immigration requirements are totally dependent on each country. The immigration procedures for students in Australia or New Zealand would not be the same for Canada, would not be the same for China or Malta or like Italy or things like that. Italy, okay. Anyways, so things like that. So always make sure that the country requirements are met and then the university requirements are met. But usually, I would say if you are actually preparing in general for a university, make sure that you prepare a really good resume, really good statement of purpose, and prepare for a mock interview. That takes into consideration all the areas that would be tested in that specific course. So do a bit of preparation. That's general. That's same across, be it any country, be it any university, any course. I hope that was clear. The next question is by Nitya. So, sir, how to fill up experience part in resume if we have no or minimum experience? You know what? This is a very, very important question which I would like to answer. Let me just repeat that again. Sir, how to fill up the experience part of the resume even if we have no or minimum experience. Experience doesn't mean that you need to work for a formal company or an organization. Experience means any relevant experience that you've acquired in your whole life. That could even be as an intern. That could even be like, a project. That could even be as a coordinator of an intercollegiate event. If you were a participant, like say an event coordinator of an intercollegiate dance festival, that is an experience. That is something that we fail to notice. For a 19-year-old student or a 20-year-old student, there is nothing much that you can expect. Or if you have done something else, like if you worked with your father or if you've worked for your mother, genuinely, I mean, it's not like, I helped my mom cut vegetables or clean the house, no. But that is actually relevant to the work. Like, for example, like I was helping in our family business. Or maybe if your father runs a store, if I was supporting him in doing that, things like that. So all those things, if you can write it really well, and if you can answer those questions, that becomes experience. Now, again, one more thing, volunteer experience is also another way to fill in the experience column. So if you don't have a genuine work experience, but there's another thing that you need to note is that don't write anything and everything that you might think, oh yeah, I've done this, I've done that, I've done. No, only the things that are relevant. As I mentioned before, any relevant experience that need not be working with a company, that can be written in the experience part. Okay, so I have 2 minutes more. I hope that was answered. If you have any more questions, I will leave my mail ID, but I'll leave 2 more minutes for any of the questions, and then I'll take those questions and then we'll wind up. At the same time, I will actually mention my mail ID as well. So just give me 1 second. So I've actually mentioned my mail ID in the chat box, and I will actually add it on the screen as well. Just give me 1 second. And you can definitely, still you have 2 minutes more, so you can ask any more questions. So here's my mail ID on the screen for the people who have not seen the chat box or things like that. So just 1 more minute, and any more questions? Any more questions? Feel free. If I totally respect the fact that like some people might not be comfortable answering that on a public domain. For all those people, feel free to pop in a mail, and I assure you that I usually respond to all my mails within 24 hours, because I usually have done that. And even for the comments and things like that, I always make sure that I respond to it. Even if it's to just say, just give me a few more, maybe a couple of minutes to answer this question or a couple of hours to answer this question. I make it a point that I answer it as ASAP. All right. So we've actually come to the end of the time limit. So we've actually come to the end of this whole presentation and the interactive session. Always, as I've mentioned before, feel free to write to me in that mail ID, and it's also mentioned in the chat box right here. Okay. And and I would like to thank all the organizers of this event, the Department of Zoology and the management of St. Teresa's College Autonomous Ernakulam for giving me this wonderful opportunity to express my views and share my little thoughts to my to aspiring students and aspiring job seekers right in front of me. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we'll stay connected. And hope you all have a great day ahead. Have food, have fun, and enjoy your life. Thank you so much.
The resource person of the day, Mr. Amal T. Anup, Director of the College, Reverend Dr. Sister Teresa, Principal Dr. Matthew, organizers of the webinar, and all the participants. A very warm good afternoon to all. I deem it a great privilege to have been asked to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. It is a matter of pride for the Department of Zoology, St. Teresa's College, to have organized this DBT-STAR funded International Career Guidance webinar, Future Launcher. On behalf of the department and the college, I wholeheartedly thank the resource person of the day, Mr. Amal T. Anup, Human Resource Assistant, Capilano University, North Vancouver, Canada, for sparing his valuable time for us. The talk was definitely an eye-opener for the students. It gave us a clearer idea about the future perspectives in our respective fields, the different career options available, and also the immense potential within us that is yet to be explored. Thank you, sir. Now I thank the Director of St. Teresa's College, Reverend Dr. Sister Vinita CSST, for her constant support and inspiration. Thank you, Sister. I thank the Principal of the College, Dr. Matthew, for being a pillar of support in all the endeavours of the Zoology Department. Thank you, ma'am. I take this opportunity to thank the organizers of the webinar, Dr. Meera Jan Abraham, Head of the Department of Zoology, Dr. Rima Kuriakos Kadmina, Mrs. Indu Vasudevan, Coordinator, and all the other members of the organizing committee for their sincere efforts to make this webinar a grand success. Thank you, teachers. I also take this opportunity to thank Dr. Mini Kedi, Head of the Department of Zoology, Sri Shankara College, Kaladi, for his support and encouragement. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants for your active participation. Once again, I thank each and every one who took part in this webinar.